you heard that sound, just an FYI, we're letting you know we're recording this. That way we can share it with people who couldn't join today. Maybe they had a more important lunch meeting or breakfast meeting to be at, but they're still very interested. So we're going to record today and be able to share that with them as well. So just want to make sure all of you are aware of that before we start. So welcome to our leader call. My name is John Allen. I've been with Water for Good for the last nearly 15 years, and excited to have Dave Levan here as well, from historically with Lifewater, now the CEO of Water for Good, and I'm the Chief Program Officer at Water for Good. And I think maybe to start off with, I want to give you a little insight into what our agenda is for today. And the first thing I want to make sure we answer is, what is a leader, and why do you have a leader call, and why is it spelled L-I-T-E-R? Leader being a play on words for leader. Okay, we got it. That's a good play on words. And we consider leaders being people who are kind of stakeholders into the work that we're doing, whether that be some of you are staff, some of you are board members, some of you are donors, some of you are sector partners, so a variety of people. We try to have these calls on a quarterly basis, and we tend to kind of dive deep into one specific thing happening within Water for Good. It connects with something that we call like a leader update on a quarterly basis, where we're highlighting different programmatic things within the organization on a quarterly basis. But this allows us to dive in deep and give an opportunity for Q&A. So kind of think of it as the lunch and learn, so to speak. But we have some open dialogue towards the end. Today, specifically, we're talking about joining together. So we're talking about Water for Good and Lifewater coming together into this new organization, this new version of Water for Good. And we just want to share with you kind of the excitement about that, share with you historically like who each of us are, and share with you why we were led to move in this direction and the things that we're excited about for it, ways that organizationally and programmatically coming together, we can really enhance one another and be more effective and have a greater impact for the people that we serve. So that's what our focus is going to be on today. And I will note, we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. And we do have this as a 30-minute call because it is meant to be kind of a lunch and learn call. If we run out of time during question and answer, I'm free later than just 30 minutes. So is Dave. So we're happy to stay on longer if we need to, but I know some of you have to go, so I want to be respectful of that time as well. Please feel free to place questions in the chat box. Leanne will be helping to monitor those, and we'll touch on those as we go along at the end. Okay, that's the foundation of what's going on here. So I want to start for people who are not familiar with Water for Good. I would not usually start a leader call with something about historically who we are organizationally. But I understand today there's going to be some people who are not as familiar with Water for Good. So I want to share a little bit about that. We work in the Central African Republic. We were founded in 2004 by our founder, Jim Hawking, who is a missionary in that country. He had lived in that country for a number of years, raised his family in that country, very familiar with that country. We've been historically focused on just the Central African Republic, really trying to go extremely deep into the water service delivery work happening there in the Central African Republic. We have kind of two interventions as it pertains to new water access. Is the first one, which is creation of new water infrastructure to serve rural communities with water access. And that's usually done through either solar powered pipe systems or hand pumps for very small communities that we serve. And then secondly, we're very focused around maintenance services and creating service delivery models to make sure that that infrastructure continues to work. These maintenance services are not just like getting parts and services to people, but also creating strong monitoring networks, working closely with governments at national, regional, and local levels, with the goal of really trying to solve this problem of water service delivery long term, so that infrastructure that's getting invested in to change communities' lives continues to work and continues to serve those communities. We also historically do sanitation and hygiene work as well, but we do a much lighter touch around sanitation and hygiene, and our focus has been much more on scaling water service delivery. So that's a little bit about our kind of programmatic approach. Just a few kind of quick stats from 2023. We've served 3,628 individual maintenance service visits. Our goal is to focus on preventative maintenance of infrastructure, so really tracking service visits with the goal of not getting to the water point when it's broken, but getting to the water point to try and prevent it from breaking. We have just over 2,000 hand pumps within our network and 186 tap stands that are connected to pipe water systems. And around 950,000 people in 2023 were being served daily through safe water access, which it's always hard to put like a number on a screen and then think about the human impact of that. But think of the last time you went to a sporting event and there was, if it was a professional sporting event, you had maybe 40,000 people. So think of these huge stadiums filled X amount of times. That's the human impact who are relying on these services on a regular basis. So it's around 25% of the rural population in the Central African Republic. So that's a little bit of, that's a nutshell version of Water for Good. And there's a lot of resources that can be available to see deeper, like how we do our work, our approach to our work and things like that. But I want to pass it over to Dave now to give a similarly small nutshell of Lifewater and their approach.
Thank you, Jon. First of all, it's nice to meet you if you're new to me. Some of you I know and some of them are new. So my name's Dave Levan. And one of the things you're going to find as Jon and I talk is some of the things with historic Lifewater and historic Water for Good are the very reasons we decided to come together and bring assets together so that we could serve more people more effectively. And so if you think about both organizations, both are relatively old. One has been around 20 some years, one has been around 40 some years. So there's rich history and learning from both organizations that we've already begun sharing, which has been really wonderful. Water for Good was founded in 1977 by a gentleman named Bill Ash. Those of you from the Lifewater side will know this story. He would visit Mexico and fix hand pumps, and he ended up starting to provide water. And back then, I want to say the number was around 2 billion people lacked basic access to water. That number is now just over 700 million. So there's been progress. But he started the organization. It's gone through many iterations in 46 years. But since 2015, the focus has been on Ethiopia, Cambodia, Uganda, and Tanzania. The program that Lifewater historically has done is called Vision of a Healthy Village Model. And it truly is an integration of water, sanitation, and hygiene. So you'll have a team of people in one of those countries going to a program area, and they will walk alongside communities over a 3-year period of time, starting with home to home, helping homes become healthy with integrating latrines and hand washing stations and healthy behavior. So it's infrastructure and behaviors around water, sanitation, and hygiene. And then the next phase will be water planning, where we'll be looking at what type of water system we'll be bringing in. And then finally, we'll start working with churches, schools, making sure everybody is working together. And then typically the Lifewater's model has been to do a study at the beginning of to look at aspects of water, sanitation, hygiene, attendance at school, cases of diarrhea, many aspects at the beginning of the 3 years, and then at the end of the 3 years to say, what have we affected? And then lately, we've started going back now 2 years after we leave the area to look at what is the impact after we're gone. So as you can see, there's some things that is, even as Jon and I were talking about this, where we can start putting some of the aspects of both programs together to actually create even better results. So that is Lifewater in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. I'm going to switch to this next slide here. And now, Dave, maybe you can talk about what do we look like combined?
Yeah, no, that's a great. So when we look at combined, and one of the great things about coming together is, and most of you have heard this before, but neither organization had to come together. This truly was a merger. Most of the time when we use the word merger, it has a bad connotation, and it's somebody is taking somebody else over. That was not the case. This was the case of saying, We've both got assets. We've both got things that we've developed that could really complement each other. So when we start looking at what is the new water for good, we will be serving in Uganda, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Cambodia, and Central African Republic. Our annual budget combined last year will be around 14.5 million. Our budget in 2024 will be somewhere around 15 million or so. But that gives you a little bit of the impact. We were just talking this morning. We have 315 combined staff. You can see kind of the country breakdown with Central African Republic being the largest and then followed by Ethiopia. We also have 4 folks in France, I think, that are included with the US number as well. And of course, these things change, but our capacity, both from a budget standpoint and from a staff standpoint, is greatly increased through the merger. And then one of the things we looked early on, as John and I were talking, before we even moved to talking seriously about should we put the organizations together, we actually started talking about how can we work together? How can we bring some of the operational excellence in finance and HR that Lifewater had been focused on with some of the partnership excellence that Water for Good had been focusing on? How can we bring that together? But it was really important that our mission and our vision and our values were very much aligned. So we used different words, but we found really great alignment with what our mission is. What do we want to do? What do we want to see happen because of what we do? And how are we going to behave along the way? So we have put together a new interim mission statement that we'll be working with the board to confirm as our mission statement. But really, it's about transforming lives through sustainable access to safe water, as well as improved sanitation and hygiene in the areas that need it the most. And I think if no matter what side you're coming from, the Water for Good side historically or the Lifewater side historically, I think the work that we do is, this resonates with both, either side that you would come from, that it is a sustainable transformation. Sustainability is super important to both organizations and now to the combined organization, and it is transformation. And we're doing it through water, sanitation, and hygiene. And the other thing to point out is in the areas that need it most. So obviously, Central African Republic, not a lot of people working there. Some of the parts in Ethiopia we work, we're the only organization working there. So that even was at the heart of both organizations as we came together to say, hey, let's look at places that maybe other people aren't going to.
Yeah, that's great. And as Dave mentioned, there was a lot of conversations of different variations of partnership and collaboration that ultimately led to us both recognizing that probably the most effective and efficient way would be to come together fully into one organization. But we've known each other for a long time. Water for Good and Lifewater have known each other for nearly a decade over the past, in a variety of ways that we've worked together. So just for an example, our founder, Jim, actually spent a year and a half consulting with Lifewater when they started drilling operations in Ethiopia. So some of the team who are on the leadership team in the Ethiopia program, they're on like WhatsApp contact communication with Jim since they built those relationships together. Dave and I got to know each other. We both moved into our roles as CEO at Water for Good and Lifewater around the same time, which was right before COVID hit. So if you're a CEO of a mid-sized nonprofit, you need to find some kind of support group, somebody who can talk with you through the chaos of everything that happened going into the COVID-19 pandemic. So we started to build a relationship that way, which ultimately led to us learning more about each other, and then saying, like, how can we really come together and serve more people effectively, which led to a variety of conversations. And then we went down the path of doing extensive due diligence, which ended up leading towards the decision to move forward with a merger. Now we're in the exciting phase of the integration period. And when I say exciting, it means we're all doing a whole lot of work while still trying to keep all these programs running at a very effective rate. But knowing that the result of this integration phase is going to be something really, really magnificent and transformative as well.
Yeah, so I like to say we created a bit of chaos internally for our teams, a little cloud of chaos. What's really cool about that is our countries are all the programs are operating just as like normal, but we're busy integrating systems. We just came from a organizational meeting where we're putting things together on the same system so that we can communicate, so that we can collaborate across 7 countries, and so that we can work together truly as one team. But yeah, no, John, it was funny you mentioned that. In addition to our counseling sessions with each other, we started to just look at what are the hearts of these organizations, and we found a lot of similarities. So maybe with that, we'll open it up to some questions. Leanne, is now a good time to open it up to questions?
Yeah, it's great. So I'm going to moderate. If you guys have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. I'm going to get to Bruce's first. He was wondering if there are plans to expand into other countries.
Great question. You want to take it? You want me to take it?
I'd be happy to.
Go for it.
I would say at this point, the answer would be not likely. Both organizations are deeply committed to making a deep and lasting impact in the countries that we're in. So when you look at if you look at the map and where we work in Central African Republic or Ethiopia, there's just such a large number of the 703 million people lacking basic access to water in the areas we work, that we are more likely to expand within the districts that we're in. We want to finish whole districts, whole infrastructures, in the 5 countries that we're in. And so to do that well, we're going to probably remain where we are. The other thing I would say is there's efficiencies that are gained. As we're working in an area, the area adjacent to it starts to see the work that's being done. And so it's actually fairly easy, much easier to go into that next area and begin working with them, whether it's the traditional Lifewater vision of a healthy village or whether it's the Water for Good system.
Yeah, and just to echo on that point, regional and district planning is so essential to sustainability of the programming that you're putting in. So it's really core and important to us to make sure that we're building and compounding on the work that's already being done to create a much higher likelihood of long-term sustainability and viability through the complementary geographical locations. Yep.
Great. Norma, thanks for your question. She was wondering what will be the name of the merged organization and what is the time frame for that merger?
Well, we've got a bunch of development people working overtime. Many of them are on this call doing an excellent job of bringing all of our donors along. So first of all, the name will be Water for Good. And we're going to, for the next several months, you're going to see co-branding of Lifewater and Water for Good, because we need to make sure that every donor, and it's thousands on both sides, that every donor understands the value of why we're doing what we're doing and that we're bringing everybody along. And so we're working right now. We just begun on a rebranding project where we'll get some help and kind of saying, okay, we have bringing these assets together, but let's make sure we're real clear on all the aspects of who we are and how we present that. So the name will be Water for Good. Probably you'll see something in the summertime. I won't give exact dates. I know all the development people are like, no, Dave, don't tell me the exact date, but we will be working towards a rebranding in the summertime. So for the part that's public facing, that's when you will start to see a new brand logo name, Water for Good, and that sort of thing. But in the meantime, there'll be a lot of co-branding along the way. Now, having said that, internally, we're working at high speed levels to get our systems aligned so that our teams globally, we can hear from every voice in the organization and they can collaborate with everybody in the organization.
Yeah, and just to give you a visual representation of co-branding, I wore a Lifewater hat, which was given to me by Dave, and I got a Water for Good shirt on today. So you'll see a lot of that.
And John, the only reason I didn't wear the hat that you gave me is because you sweated in it and you wore it a lot. And then you gave it to me. I was like, come on, I gave you a new one at least.
I didn't have a new one on me at the time. Served its purpose.
I can send you a hat, Dave.
Thank you, Leanne.
All right, I'm going to combine 2 of these questions, or Jesse and John's are kind of similar. What is the program for spiritual ministry, and also what metrics do you use to measure spiritual impacts and goals. And we've got these questions coming in, so you boys can just crank them out.
John, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, on the faith and action standpoint, the spiritual ministry component, we have a whole section that will be dedicated to our website talking about the faith and action element of the work that we do. There's less historical like metrics that we measure on the Water for Good side, because most of our spiritual ministry work in terms of communicating with the communities that we're serving are happening through our radio station. And it's just really hard to capture like detailed information. Whereas Lifewater traditionally has worked really closely with local church partnerships. So they have a few more metrics around that. So this will be part of the integration piece that we'll be doing in terms of looking at what metrics are collectible and able to be communicated out effectively, and that we can use from learning. Dave, maybe do you want to share a little more on the detailed of the historical Lifewater ones?
Yes. First of all, I'll say both of our founders were and are deep men of faith, and looked at this as a way to express their love of Christ and living out their Christian faith and sharing the gospel through practice. So we want to honor both great legacies that we have. On a historic water or Lifewater side, we typically we have 7 program areas, and in all those program areas, we've got a church partner. And so we really look at our work is to, they'll walk alongside in the program, the 3-year program with us, with the Lifewater projects. And we really want to empower and challenge the church in that area. So we challenge the church to be the ones looking at the most vulnerable people in the community in that 3-year process when people are digging latrine pits on their house. So we challenge them to find the people who can't do that and to get involved. And we challenge them to actually work with the other churches in the area instead of being competitive. And then those folks walk right alongside with our teams. And then when we are leaving a district, we know that that's part of the sustainability model that the churches in the area will help sustain. So it really is a church empowerment. So most of the metrics, we actually get reports from our church partners, but rather than us talking about the metrics of what the church is doing, we let them talk about that and then share that with donors and anyone who wants to see what the result of that church partnership is producing.
Yeah, and those local church institutions are critical, social institutions to help allow for sustainability of these projects as well.
Derek wants to know, how have your governmental points of contact that you work in with the country, such as CAR, responded to the merger?
So far, we're in kind of the early communication phase with governmental points of contacts, as well as kind of regional points of contacts. So we don't have a lot of feedback yet. I think the first 8 weeks that we've been working has been mostly like internal and external from the staff standpoint and the integration standpoint, making sure everyone's clear. We've put a few press releases out that have gone to the different country contacts. And so we'll know more in the coming months around that, but general feedback across the board from our external audiences has been extremely positive around the merger.
And to add to that, when we look at the countries, we're going to be slower to change there than what you would see, say, in the U.S. and we have 2 headquarters now, Bentonville in the U.S. and Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And so the folks in those offices, plus all the remote folks and the folks in France, will experience more change more rapidly, bringing systems and things together. But in country, we're going to continue to, as we enhance programs, continue to let them operate how they are operating, and more slowly enhance the program. So even like name changes and things like that, we know that those can take a long time to work through. So we're gonna be patient with that side of things. The other thing I'll say is we've already started getting on the Lifewater side, we get our countries together. So they're comparing best practices and notes and things. And so we've already had, John, I know you had meetings with all the countries, bringing the CIR in with all the other countries. And so we've started those rhythms already so that the countries can begin sharing some best practices, some hurdles, some difficulties, challenges, how they're overcoming them, and that sort of thing.
Great. Okay, so we have 3 minutes left for those who want to hop off at 12:30. So this is a little 3-minute warning bell. Joe and Bob asked a great question. What is the best way as historic Water for Good donor, historic Lifewater donor to now support the merger transition, meeting overall goals? Is there a best way to get the word out? Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, you want to take that one? You've been communicating a lot with donors in person, so.
Sure. I would say, first of all, we have been communicating with donors. I've probably had 10 or 12 conversations with just leaders of other small nonprofits. There's a genuine excitement around the concept of bringing resources together to be more effective and to be able to serve more people. And so I think as we talk with donors, I think the first thing would be make sure you're familiar and that you're informed on here's what's happening. And, either through talking through normal channels that you have, you can reach out to John or myself, and then just sharing the excitement of that with other people, because I think what we've actually seen some new donors come in already from just the excitement of, hey, I like what you guys are doing. I've been involved with several conversations where we're talking to a few new folks. I think it really is an opportunity for our donor bases to talk to other people and say, hey, this is what's going on right now. And so again, make sure you're informed on that. If there's tools and things we'll be producing that we can give you to help you stay informed, make use of those things as well.
Yeah, that's great. And if either of these organizations are on your regular prayer list, I'd say continue doing that for sure, because that prayer support is needed now as we navigate through all the changes, and as we make decisions in terms of how we're aligning different systems and working programmatically to enhance one another, just for wisdom around that as well.
Great. Well, this is your 12:30 dinner bell if anyone wants to hop off, but we're going to keep answering. I still have a couple more questions coming in. So,
and for those of you who need to leave, thanks so much for joining. And I saw my dad's son here, and it was his birthday last week. So happy birthday, Dad. Love you if you have to go.
All right. So the next question is kind of a combo of Greg and Michelle. They are wondering, I just lost it. What are the similarities and differences in the training programs for each organization? And then kind of touching on if Water for Good is going to add, I guess, historic Water for Good, add in more like hygiene training.
Yeah, that's a great question. On the programmatic side, there's a lot of similarities and a few differences, I'd say. The differences being that Water for Good has really focused more on the water service delivery, and that's where we track a lot of metrics around functionality, scale, reach, and things like that. So we've really pushed hard on faster scaling of just water service delivery and going a little bit kind of shallower on the sanitation and hygiene side. And that's just basically like a programmatic trade-off that we had to do based on our budget size, our organizational size, and our staff size. Whereas Lifewater has taken a much deeper level approach within the areas where they're doing the vision of a healthy village programming. So they're taking a similar regional approach, but at a smaller scale and a deeper scale, and then systematically going to adjoining regions around that. Their focus is much deeper around sanitation and hygiene and behavior change, which is why it takes much longer to work within those communities, because you have to come along those communities. You have to learn from those communities what's needed. You have to provide encouragement, education, and training, and the like. They're also monitoring and measuring much deeper levels of health impacts, that's because sanitation and hygiene promotion, complemented with clean water access, allows for much better visibility around the overall health outcomes that are happening within those communities. So there's two areas that I'd say where we see really great potential enhancements. One is around, yes, the sanitation and hygiene side and going much deeper. And we'll be selective in where we do that in Central African Republic, because we don't have the resources to scale that out holistically in the broad geographic scope that we currently work. But we are working closely with government officials in very subset areas of the Central African Republic, and those will be the best opportunities for then going in on a much deeper plan around sanitation and hygiene change. And then I'd say from the programs in the historical Lifewater areas, really looking at some just indicators and metrics of financial sustainability, and supporting better visibility around the different stakeholders that are needed for long-term viability of infrastructure going in as well.
Along with that, John, Matt asked, will the infrastructure maintenance in the Central East Africa be enhanced?
So in the Central African Republic, currently it'll continue as is. As I mentioned, programmatically, we're looking at we're in a very much of a deep learning phase. And I'd say going into next year is where you'll start to see some of these enhancements coming out based on the learnings that we do over the course of this year. I'm certain from some of the operational and systems strengths that Lifewater is bringing into the new organization that will have some improvements around standard operating procedures and a few other things that are going to enhance the work being done in the Central African Republic. And then similarly, just getting greater visibility in the East African countries as well as Cambodia around who are the different stakeholders. You know, there's currently a maintenance plan in each of those program areas. So we'll be looking at pros and cons of those and are there opportunities for improving. So we'll be really looking at a country by country type of improvement plan if there is one.
And just to reiterate, when it comes to programs, actually the development and operations people are a little jealous because their lives are very disrupted right now. It's like we've all got to be on this system by April 1st, payroll, finance. But with programs, we are intentionally, as I said earlier, taking some time and getting our program leaders together to talk about things. Part of historic Lifewater's move to have an office in Addis Ababa is to have our VP of implementation, our director of engineering are all there. And so there will be a lot of travel to the other program areas to start, as John said, looking at, okay, how are we doing sustainable in Central African Republic versus Ethiopia versus Tanzania? Because right now I can tell you they're all three different models. And so what's the best? What works in what country? And we don't want to force things. We want to learn first and then make sure, because all the areas of program are having great impact right now. So we want to make sure we're patient in how we look at best practices.
Great. Are we going to have in-country visits for donors who want to see what is going on?
Yes, absolutely. We love bringing people to see the work. I think this year every country, if you're interested in Central African Republic, I think every country except Cambodia's, I think, is next March, if I'm not mistaken. But there are dates that any of you can go on to Central African Republic, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, and then next spring in Cambodia. And then I'm sure the development team will be developing new dates for after that. But we would love for you to experience the work and meet the people who are doing the work. I mean, we're headquarters people. We only exist to facilitate and equip and create capacity for the real heroes of the work who are out there every day doing all the things. And so, yeah, we'd love to have your life blessed by meeting some of those teams.
Final question, is Charity Water still involved with, what is Charity Water's involvement in this look like?
Charity Water, yeah, they've been a longtime partner of Water for Good. All of the work that they've done in the Central African Republic, we've been their implementing partner. We're actually one of their longest standing partners that they have. So we have a long history that goes back. And we're super grateful for the support that they've brought to the work there in the Central African Republic. They are familiar with Lifewater's work, and they've gone through a few different phases of evaluation, and they're actually really excited about the merger as well. So these will be ongoing conversations around how does that look in the future. But for right now, we have 3 active grants with them in the Central African Republic.
Great. Norma, I just listed those churches out for you, our churches, countries. If there are not any other questions, I think that's all. Oh, who's faster on a mountain bike, Dave or Jon? That's
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that question. And that's a good one to end on. I'm a couple years older than Jon, but we have not mountain biked together yet. But we do plan to do that soon. So we'll let you know. I'm going out to Raleigh in a few weeks, and then he's coming here a few weeks after that. So we will keep you all posted.
That'll be our next leader call. We'll post some mountain bike times and a few other things. If I were a betting person, I would bet on Dave.
Also, just a reminder for all of you who are new to this leader call setup, we will be sending emails out once a month with just direct updates from the field. So keep an eye out for that. And then these leader calls are quarterly. We will send you a reminder when they are. So I'm done talking, but if anyone has anything
All
else
right.
to say, thank you all so much.
I just want to thank all of you for coming along on this journey with us. We really feel like there's some exciting things on the horizon, and it couldn't be done without the support, or if you're an employee of Water for Good, the work that you're doing. So big thank you. Dave?
Yes, I would echo that. I look forward to meeting some of you in person who I maybe haven't met, but we are both, I are just super grateful, both organizations. And now as we become one organization, really grateful for the long-term support and the prayer support from all of you. And yes, look forward to continuing that relationship going forward.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.